Good morning. This is a historic day. I mean, for all of us, particularly, we know the statistics around cancer. You know, in the United States, 1 to 2 people die from cancer every minute. Worldwide, about 19 people per minute. And so, if you may have noticed, this program was launched last Monday, and this is probably one of the fastest proposals day that ARPA-H has had. So in 8 days, you all are here. So really, first of all, I just want to welcome you and thank you for trying to be here in such short notice. We also want to welcome those who are online. We know there are hundreds of people who sign up to be online as well, who could not make it here. But I actually want to start also to acknowledge a number of people who are working behind the scene that have made this happen. So I want to start by thanking especially Carrie Dempsey, who has been sending out the communications to you guys. You may have received emails from her. And Tim Shao, who is also part of the team. The fantastic Renee, who just left the podium. He organized all of this. If you are here, everything that's happening is because of Renee. Also really thanking Carl Schmoo, who is here. You're going to hear from him later on. Michael Simek, who is also here. And then Ryan Kelly, who is leading the IT if you're online. And then Ruth, Sophie, Caitlin, you're going to see a number of people who are going to come up in the podium during the programs. But I also want to stop and thank the ARPA-H leadership. So Dr. Alicia Jackson, who has really been aggressive since joining ARPA-H to move these programs out, as well as Rafid. And you may have seen, that, this is something that the US government Health Secretary is very much in support of, right? Because like I mentioned at the beginning, cancer is not waiting, right? People are dying every minute. And so there's a lot of support for this particular program. And so during this today, before I want to tell you a little bit about, ARPA-H, if you have, how many of you, hands up, anybody who's ever had funding from ARPA-H before, or from an ARPA? Great, I see some hands up, that's wonderful. So some of you already know the ARPA model. If you look at this slide, basically, ARPA-H, is really modeled around the model of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And DARPA obviously is credited for self-driving cars. You may have seen them in your neighborhood, right? The internet, all of us use the internet today, and mRNA vaccines and all these other things. And so what really happens here is that it's a really unique model for funding research. And here, ARPA-H is going to focuses on health. While DARPA has invented the internet and self-driving cars, we want to bring the same model to healthcare. And the goal, as the director always says, is serve as a time machine. Okay, so if they are, think about the future, imagine what would transform healthcare in 10, 15 years. We want to be able to bring you guys, all of you here are like the superheroes. You bring all your superpowers. That's a really cool thing that I get to do as a program manager, is that I get to work with the best minds like you guys and build this team that's going to address, address cancer. And so I'm really excited. I hope we can share in the excitement today that we can be able to really put together this a superhero program that can fight cancer. And so I'm going to just share a little bit about the program today. We're going to be very straight to the point. First, we're going to get, hear from Dr. McLaren and Ms. Pratt. We're going to talk about why this work is really, really important. And then after that, we will go, the real reason why you're here from Proposals Day is to hear from me exactly what we are looking for in this program, the details. And obviously, the second reason is that you can meet other people and you can team. Maybe there's one thing that you're really, really good at, that's your superpower. but other people have other superpowers. So you have to work together. So you have that opportunity where you can actually meet other team members and can create a kind of teaming. And then finally, after that, we're going to talk about some of the resources that are available. We're going to talk about the contracting. With Carl, who is here, we're going to talk about if you're joining internationally, ARPA-H also has a really unique model to engage even international people who have superpowers who are international as well. And so we're going to hear from the Division for International Affairs. So I'm going to talk about that. And then finally, we are going to also hear, we have Anush from Oak Ridge National Lab, who is going to talk to us about some of the resources that the national labs have for you. And then we're going to break out for lunch. And like Renee said, we have some people who already are very excited about this. They want to present some lightning talks, show what some of the capabilities that they have. And then, like Renee said, we have sidebars behind that room. If you want to sign up for that, just kind of meet, you have questions to talk to me about that. But if you have to leave today early, you can schedule that with Kerry. And then we are going to have, because of the rapid turnaround, we're actually going to have continuous try to engage with you and organize meetings with you to make sure we answer all your questions and make sure that you are all clear about what's really needed for this program. So most of you are looking for funding. And I know, having run labs at Harvard and Johns Hopkins, I know that, as a researcher, you're always thinking about money and money. The great thing about ARPA-H is that, you can stop going for the few $100s and $200 and $300. You can really think big, right? One of my favorite sayings from Albert Einstein is that imagination is better than knowledge, okay? Knowledge is really great, but we want you to imagine the future. Imagine the future, where we're going to be 10 years from now. And ARPA-H comes with the investment that you need so that you can focus all your attention on the good science and using your superpowers. You don't have to be worrying about funding and little monies here and there. Of course, you have to worry about your families. That's a priority too. But that's the cool thing about being, about ARPA-H. And so, we really want you guys to dedicate and focus on seeing how we can really develop this program and make a big difference. So without much ado, I'm going to, this is really important. I actually think this is the most important speakers today. Okay, all the work that we are all here coming from across the US and across the world. The reason we're here is because we want to address cancer. And there is no better speaker and more important person to talk about this than those who really have survived cancer or are dealing with cancer. And so I really want, it's my honor, to invite Dr. Joe McLaren and Miss Patricia McLaren, who are going to speak to us about why this work is important. So let's give them a hand while we welcome them to the podium, please.
Well, as Will said, I'm a doctor, but not your kind of doctor, okay? Nothing to do with science. But the neat thing is that I've had a lot of experiential part in dealing with cancer, both personally and professionally. I'm a retired pastor and have walked through hundreds and hundreds of people on their journey with cancer. And I want to start kind of with telling you a little bit about my journey. I was 28 years old, had my dream job. I was a forester for a pulp and paper company. I love the woods. I love outside. And I, at 28 years old, found out I had cancer. I had surgery and then radiation therapy. And that was back when radiation therapy had gone from experimental to there were certain places around the country that did this. So I had my treatment at Shands in the University of Florida, Gainesville. Just to tell you a little bit about it, you're 28, if you remember back then, you think you're immortal. You don't think anything like this is ever going to happen to you. And I came to grips with possibly my own death and my own mortality. I was married to this beautiful woman. We had two preschool kids, and all of a sudden dealing with, I may leave her a widow. Now, what happened at that time, and this is kind of my journey, is that I had, kind of started going to church. I was not a Christian, and then started going to church, and got very involved in church. It was like one of these wonderful places where everybody loved each other, and so, when I had my radiation therapy, I'll just tell you kind of a brief kind of a story that. They said I might get sick from it. They radiated my stomach area, and they said you may get sick, you may not. Just different people react differently. And so the first treatment, I didn't get sick, and the second treatment, I was standing next to a window. I was talking to my brother-in-law in Gainesville after I'd gotten my second treatment. And I said, I think this is just mind over matter. I've told myself I'm not going to get sick, and I'm not going to get sick. And as soon as I said that, a lightning bolt hit right outside the window, the closest I've ever been. I mean, within like 10 feet of me, literally shocked my entire body. And God spoke to me. That this doesn't happen often, but this happened. And he says, you are not in control of your life. I am in control of your life. And then I began to get sick. I mean, sick, nauseous, vomiting. I could not stop. It lasted for hours and hours. And in the midst of that, I gave my life, fully to God. Before it was sort of not quite. I've got a lot of stuff that I'm holding on to here, my dream job and all that. I said, God, I may die. I know I'm yours. I belong to you, created me, and I know you'll take care of my wife and kids. Or, if I survive, I'm willing to do whatever you would want me to do. So I gave God what I call a blank check. God, you fill it in. What I didn't know is about 2 months later, he'd fill it in with, I want you to go into the ministry and be a pastor. And I told my wife, I said, I would never want to be a pastor. And she goes, well, that's good, because I'd never want to be a pastor's wife, And I think God has a sense of humor and that sort of stuff. But in my journey, my grandfather died of bone cancer, probably the biggest influence in my life in my adolescent years. My dad had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He actually came here for experimental thing when nothing else worked, and left. And basically, I believe that the chemotherapy that they gave him here killed him. He was going to die anyway, but it just accelerated it. Very difficult. He died in our home. My wife has stage 4 neuroendocrine cancer. So I've dealt with it personally. I've dealt with it with people that, I loved in my congregation and walked through. Some of them cured, some of them not. It's as almost all the treatments, there's a percentage, maybe, you got 50% chance of living, 50% not. And normally they're talking about 5 years, but you may live 5 years, 50%, kind of. So all that has been very difficult to deal with, as many people do. What makes it really difficult is the price that it cost financially for people. And my wife's shots that she takes once a month are $15,000. Okay. I have really good insurance. I got Schedule F in Medicare. I have no deductible. So everything's paid for. We have no problem with getting treated. That is, and this is the weird thing. I and probably you are in the top 1% of people in the world that have that luxury. Okay. Most people, they can't even pay their deductible. They cannot pay if they don't have insurance, which most people in the world do not have insurance. And so what happens is there are so many people that have cancer, there may be hope with some kind of cure and they're excluded by it, which is, to me, Will's vision of having a cure for something that, whatever kind of cancer you have, to be affordable for people in third world countries as well as poor people in ours is a remarkable thing. And I mean, I can't believe our government's doing this. It's just wonderful. It just is so exciting. It's such a great vision. God's wired me to be a visionary. I just love like great visions and imagination and to see what we can accomplish together as a team. One of the things I've known Will for a long time and just absolutely love him. And when he told me what he was doing, Pat and I committed to be his prayer partners. And so he's going to develop a team of people. Most of you will get research money and you'll meet meetings and stuff like that. I'm on that team, but I won't get any research money. Okay. I won't be at your meetings, but both Pat and I are going to be on our knees praying. I mean, I serve a God that, like, he does miracles when you pray and you honor him with what you're doing. And to me, what you're doing is a great thing for the human race, and it's a great thing for God. And I want to just take a moment as a pastor, to say that, Jesus made it very clear that the poor, those that are broken in our world, are close to him. And anything that you do for those that are least in our society, Jesus said, you are doing it for me, kind of thing. So it's a great thing for God. It's a great thing for us. And to me, I know that God honors those that are willing to do something for the least in our society. So I'm really excited about that. So just to let you know, both Pat and I will be praying for you. And so I'd like to let my wife, Pat.
Hi, my name is Patricia, and I have cancer. I never say that to anybody. I don't mention cancer ever because I've noticed early on that there's a stereotype, that people stereotype me in all kinds of ways. I do have neuroendocrine carcinoma stage 4. I have a treatment once a month. I have difficult side effects from those treatments, and it all costs $15,000. So the financial hardship, I go for my transfusion, and I sit in a room with a lot of people, and we all pray for each other, talk, laugh, cry. So that's my family, and we talk about financial hardship. It's just unbelievable. One couple, they're elderly, and Mary brings her husband for treatments. And I was there a day when the management came to her. I witnessed this and said, you have not kept up with your payments. Can you do that? And she said, no, we've spent our savings, every cent that we had, and we live on a fixed budget, and I'm trying to get money it's just, I don't know. Management said, that's fine. No payment, no treatment. That was it. And I wept with her and just didn't know what to do. So I'm so thankful, so very thankful when Will told us what was going on. We're so grateful for each one of you that are brave and going forward for this cure. It's just incredible. So I just will be praying for you. Pray for all those folks in that treatment center. I do all the time. They have faces of hope and faces of fear, and so it will be a great day when this comes about. Thank you so much for letting me pray for you and speak with you. So Joe and I are going to be on our knees. Thank you so very much.
Please, let's give them a hand one more time. Dr. Joe and Ms. Patricia, they represent everyday Americans. They represent everyday Americans. And like they shared, this is actually even worse across the world, right? So this is really important. It means that if you are here today and, it's really thank you that you're praying for us, for the team that's going to be working on this. But I really think it shows how important the work that you're going to be doing is for cancer patients. So I'm going to move forward now, and I'm going to introduce to you guys the One Cure program and what is being expected through this program, what you need to do. And but I want to start by really talking about what this stands for. One Cure stands for One Comprehensive Universal Radiotherapy for everyone. For everyone. And this really starts, Joe and Pat have already shared their story about cancer. When you wake up each morning, and this is true for me, when I wake up every morning, I think about the statistics, right? In the United States, we have about 2 million cancer cases every year. We have about 600,000 deaths. Like I mentioned, 1 to 2 Americans died in the 1 minute that I just spoke. Children is even more devastating, right? 15,000 cases per year. And it is the leading cause of disease-related deaths in kids. Cancer is. And then if you zoom out and think globally, cancer cures 10 million people a year. 10 million. And so we're not even talking about the economic cost of that. 10 million people. And most of them, like Dr. Joe mentioned, these are people who are actually very poor. They don't have access to treatment. So they die, not only die, they die painful and distressful deaths. And so this is really one of the key motivations why we want to have this One Cure program. But look at the statistics as well in terms of cancer cost. So cancer treatment costs can be up to $400,000 per year. If you're doing CAR T cell therapy, I've seen estimates of up to $1 million per year. How many people can afford that? And then the treatment time for most patients, this becomes like something appointment after appointment after appointment after appointment. So this can take years of treatment, months. For radiotherapy, it can range from weeks to months. And sometimes, the biggest fear is always what we call scan phobia, which every year you go and get scanned and you are afraid that the cancer may have come back. And then you get back into that cycle. And so, so this is a really important thing, Dr. Joe mentioned, it's really amazing. We're really grateful that the US government is investing into this to think about addressing these cost issues that have to do for not only the physical toll that cancer has on people, but also the cost, the financial toxicity. So let's imagine, what if we could develop a radiotherapy approach and technology that can enable one low-cost curative treatment that's effective for all cancers? That's the big moonshot. Actually, I have to tell you this, the reason why I came and pitched this idea to ARPA-H partly was because after years of working in cancer centers, I was increasingly frustrated by the fact that we know there are hundreds of different cancers. Each one of these cancers has a different treatment approach. You come in there, they have to develop prescribe a new kind of treatment for that particular cancer. So cancer is many diseases. It's not one type. And I remember when politicians talk about, we're going to develop a cure for cancer, most people in the scientific community just laugh because they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. You cannot develop a cure for cancer because there are hundreds of different cancers. How are you going to be able to do that? Right. So for me, that was also a frustration. But that's the really cool thing about ARPA-H. ARPA-H makes us, actually, we believe that if we tell you we're going to do the thing and you don't scratch your head and wonder, are you going to do it? Then it's not ARPA-H enough, right? So we take we're really bold. ARPA-H is really bold, thinks about the future, and then, we bring all the teams like you guys to be able to address this. And so if you could get this one approach that works across different cancers, that will really be cool. And in addition to that, we want to address those costs. We want to make sure that it's low cost, right? The treatment time, one decisive treatment, one or few decisive treatments. So you can complete your treatment in one day or more, but not months, not weeks, not years. All right, so there are really two key things here that we want to address, right? So we're talking about radiotherapy. So if you look on the left-hand side, you basically see, so this image kind of gives you a cancer, you target that with radiation. What happens is that, cancer, as you know, is just one of your cells that goes rogue, right? Just keeps multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. But your body doesn't really know that it's a bad thing. So your immune system that's usually designed to fight cancer does not attack the cancer. The cancer has a way to hide itself and camouflage. So the goal here is really that with the radiation, so radiotherapy now becomes a way to damage the cancer, force it to reveal itself to the immune system. So basically these fragments kind of represent, the signatures or the antigens or other signals that are released by the cancer that then allow your immune system to say, aha, you are actually not really a healthy cell of the body. And then can get trained. And then once they get trained, as you can see in the image on the right-hand side, basically they can attack the cancer locally, that cancer that you did radiotherapy for. But because it's also empowered now, even if the cancer has spread to other parts of the body, it can also attack that cancer. So 90% of cancer patients die, over 90% estimates, die because the cancer has spread to other parts of the body. And, I was talking to somebody earlier, radiotherapy is one of the big pillars of cancer treatment, over 50%. Imagine, but it's always targeted to localized disease. So imagine if we could be able to convert this into a way that empowers your immune system to address cancer that has spread to other parts of the body, right? So that's going to be really powerful. So I'm going to talk about the two technical areas shortly, but as you can imagine, this slide tells you about the impact that we can have. Starting with kids, right? Children. We know that even with radiotherapy, we are always concerned that children are going to develop secondary cancers because they are still growing, their cells are dividing. But we really want to focus with the one cure to make sure that with this approach, it's not about the dose of radiation that you're delivering, radiotherapy you're delivering. It's actually the shift really goes towards, can you force the cancer to reveal itself to the immune system? And so you may not need a high dose of radiotherapy. You can just, as long as you can force it to reveal itself, you can make it safer, including for kids. And then you get better results very fast, right? So instead of grueling weeks and months and years of treatment, you can actually really empower your immune system in one treatment, one decisive treatment. And you can spend more time with your families. And then we really believe, obviously, this is an investment from the US government. We think that if we can succeed, if we're able to succeed, this is really going to supercharge United States leadership across the world. And then in addition to that, we talk about the cost. So one of the key metrics for this One Cure program is I want to make sure that you don't have to pay $1 million per year for a treatment. So this is going to be very built in the metrics that we're developing in this. And of course, you can imagine that, right? So if we're able to successfully reveal the cancer to your immune system and in a way that is sustainable, you don't really need to keep having. One cool thing there is that you can actually, from initial studies, can generate immune memory, which means that your immune system gets trained, it recognizes the cancer, so you don't have to be worried about scan phobia, which I talked about earlier, right? Hopefully, that can be the case where you don't have to worry about cancer recurrence. But before we really get down into the details of the technical area, I just want to highlight that, I always picture, and I tell my kids this, right? I picture cancer as a monster if you've watched the Avengers movie, Avengers Infinity Wars, right? I kind of view Thanos, the villain in that movie, as cancer. If you watch the movie, he gets up one day and decides that he's going to get these infinity stones. He's going to wipe out half of the world's population. I mean, if you think about the statistics for cancer, 10 million deaths per year, you know, that's really the kind of mindset that Thanos definitely has, right? So what does it take to defeat Thanos? It actually takes the Avengers to come together. People from different backgrounds, you know. And in this room, I can see people like that. People who are online. You have people who are in the radiotherapy space, obviously. You have people who, it's going to include people who are in clinical medical oncology. We're going to need engineers, you know. We're going to need, so these are all the Avenger team that we want to put together to fight this villain. You know, my kid actually, one of my kids developed a Lego movie where they basically explain that radiotherapy is like Captain Marvel, right? You can shine the light, you know, it has the power. Spider-Man, who is one of the favorites for kids, is like immunotherapy. He gets bitten by the spider, it trains, and then they can get superhero pop, act like a spider. So it's like, you know, a vaccine in some ways. And then chemotherapy is Thor, can go all over the universe, you know, all over your body, you know. Surgery is the Hulk, right? So with brute force, you can go in there and cut out the cancer. But this kind of really illustrates what you guys also bring, right? All of you have super talents, superpowers and different things that we are going to have to build teams, come together because yes, the monster, not one person is going to be able to address that. And that's what ARPA allows us to do, is that we can bring all your superpowers and we can work together to get this to happen. So today, if you look at the cancer treatments, because each of these superheroes definitely has their limitations, you know, radiotherapy and surgery, they're only for localized cancers. We want to treat with curative intent. Targeted therapy, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, they are systemic, but very toxic. Immunotherapy comes close to, you know, preventing you from having no cancer recurrence, but it also has other side effects and is very costly. So each one of these Avengers against cancer, they have limitations. And so we need to kind of think about what we can do to address this, overcome these limitations. So just thinking about radiotherapy itself, we know that if you want to treat a patient with radiotherapy, the cancer has to be localized. Sometimes you have resistance, the side effects. You know, Dr. Joe mentioned about his experience with when they irradiated his stomach, how he got those side effects. Metastasis, you cannot, that's a limitation with radiotherapy. You can't just irradiate the whole person, you know, to remove the cancer. So you have to deal with, that's a limitation. You cannot use radiotherapy to just treat metastasis like that. The costs are also very high. You know, the time can be long, you know, and then if you think about technologies like proton therapy, you know, only about 31 states in the United States have a proton therapy machine, which is one of the superior forms of radiotherapy. And so it means that many people don't have access to that. And so the goal here is we imagine this future for one cure where you can have one effective, comprehensive, universal radiotherapy for everyone that addresses all these concerns. So this picture here really captures what, illustrates what the One Cure program wants to do. Okay, so essentially, if you think about this picture of the person, you have the beam of radiotherapy that's delivered. Let's say this is cancer in your liver or, you know, in one location, but the cancer has spread to your lungs or maybe to your brain or some other parts of your body. So what we really want to do here, you can target that cancer with radiotherapy beam. But before you do that, you actually want to make sure that, you know, the beam is going exactly where you want it to go. So currently, we have what we call, you know, you have image guidance. You have to use imaging to guide that treatment. And we actually do have radiotherapy biomaterials called, like we call them fiduciaries, that you can implant sometimes to guide this treatment so you're very accurate. And so in this particular case, you guide the treatment to the cancer. It damages the cancers, it releases the signatures, and then you have these immune cells, like your antigen-presenting cells. They can pick up those signatures, and they can go to your lymph nodes, they can train your lymph nodes, and then empower your immune system now to attack the cancer. The cancer that you treated with radiotherapy, but also the cancer that has spread to other parts of your body. And so you can convert that local targeted treatment into a systemic treatment. So that's essentially the goal here. There are two technical areas that, each one of you have to think about where your superpower is in addressing. Because teaming is really required, means that even if your superpowers are in one thing, in technical area one, you will need to find somebody in technical area two that you can partner with and team with. So this is going to be collaborative effort, the Avengers working together, right? So that's how it's going to be. And so TA1, technical area one, is smart radiotherapy biomaterials. And this is really, right now in the clinic, we use fiducials. You have seen fiducial markers. You can call that a biomaterial, but right now we don't consider it smart. It's probably inert, just because you don't, apart from the fact that it can guide the treatment, the radiotherapy beam, so that it goes to where you want it to go. You cannot really activate it to do anything else. So for TA1, we want to have a smart radiotherapy biomaterial, which means that it will be multifunctional, so it can guide the treatment. That's number one. Can provide MRI or CT imaging contrast or both. But number two, you can also activate it to do something. So that's why it's smart. It's smart because if it reaches the cancer, maybe the cancer microenvironment, because it's more acidic, or maybe the radiotherapy beam that you deliver can activate it. We actually know one of the reasons Einstein won the Nobel Prize was for the photoelectric effect, where if he used gold nanoparticles, we can provide kind of contrast. It can force it to emit very short-range electrons, which can damage the cancer more, but can also provide that contrast. So in a way, you can call a gold nanoparticle a smart particle if you activate it to do something, right? So we want these smart biomaterials to be multifunctional, can provide image guidance, can also load a drug. So think about that as a drone, right? We've heard about the future where drones can deliver packages at your door, can give you the zip code, can deliver the package at your door. That's the same kind of thing you want to imagine. So if you have the cancer, can you target that smart biomaterial to go to the cancer? It's loaded with a payload. This payload can be an immunoadjuvant, an agent, anything that you think can help, enhance that systemic response that we're talking about. So you have the freedom to come up with whatever, drug or immunoadjuvant or agent that you can use to be able to load into this biomaterial so that it can be delivered to empower your immune system, such that you convert that cancer into that one that is resistant and camouflaging, immunosuppressive, into one where that environment becomes more, can generate this systemic effect, which we call the abscopal effect. By the way, if you've never heard the abscopal effect, you may have seen that in the solution, in the what was posted online. You will see that the abscopal effect really means up means away. It was first described in 1953, where the patient comes into the clinic, the person describes this, you say you have liver cancer, you treat that cancer, but the cancer in other parts of your body also regresses, even though you did not treat it. So away from the cancer that you treat. So up means away. And so since 1953, there have been many case studies that have shown that this happens for patients. But that's where technical area 2 really comes in. Technical area 2 wants us to convert this from a rare effect that happens randomly when we don't know when it's going to happen, to something that you can control, that you can actually predict. And so right now in the clinic, when we do radiotherapy treatments, we actually have a treatment planning system, which tells you, okay, if you're delivering the radiotherapy beam, if the size of the beam is this amount, the dose you are delivering, here's the organ, you can make a plan, and you can make a treatment plan to deliver that when the patient comes in. So we want to take that to the next level and also include biological effects in that treatment plan. So we call it the abscopal treatment planning system, because you can use it to plan the regression of the cancer that you treated, but also the abscopal effect, so the cancer that spread to other parts of your body. So that's why it's called the abscopal treatment planning system. There are some enabling technologies that make this possible today. Obviously, AI, artificial intelligence, is one of those things where we can take all this data. It's really been shown, a lot of this work, some of you sitting in the audience have done that, where you've seen that in animal studies, that the abscopal effect, happens, right? But we have been really not able to translate that to humans in a way that is concrete, where you can predict and control. So there's a lot of data out there that you can actually use that data to train your models and think about how you can integrate that in order and the treatment planning systems we already have, and develop this kind of treatment planning system that allows you, the 90% is really high and ambitious, that's ARPA-H, right? But that's where we really want to aim, where you can really predict, you can make a plan and know that when the patient comes in and you treat the patient, they are going to have the abscopal effect. So that's the big shot here. And so obviously, again, there are enabling technologies that make it possible. I want to mention Flash. You may have seen that in the ISO that was posted online. Flash radiotherapy is still emerging. It's just still emerging. There are some studies that have shown that if you deliver Flash, so Flash means you can deliver a very high dose of radiotherapy in a very short time. So 40 gray, at least 40 gray per second. So before you blink your eye, the treatment is done. But the cool thing about that is they've also seen that when you deliver it that way, there are some benefits in terms of reducing the side effects that you are getting. More importantly, there are studies that show that because radiotherapy can actually also be immunosuppressive, right? If you want to get, like sometimes when you want to do a transplant, you actually go to the radiotherapy department and they irradiate you so they can destroy your immune cells so you can accept the transplant, right? So there are studies that have shown that when you're actually doing radiotherapy, the normal way that we do it today, as your blood flows through the beam, you can really damage the immune cells themselves. And for the abscopal effect to happen, we do want that immune cell to be intact. We don't want to destroy the immune cells. So there is a study that's basically shown that with the Flash approach, you can essentially, because in the blink of you deliver the treatment in a second, yeah, the immune cells barely move, right? They barely move. You're done. And so there's reduced damage to the immune cells that you actually need to be able to empower and make that abscopal effect happen. And so that's one of the reasons. So we're aiming big. We're aiming for the Flash. We know that this is something that's emerging. It's an enabling technology. Now you can deliver that with protons, and people are developing that for photons. But we're going to be very agnostic to whatever approach that you use there, whether it's photons or protons. But that's one of the things that has really emerged that we think can happen. So those are the two technical areas. We also want to be very clear that, and you may have seen that with the press release that included from Secretary Kennedy, we want to be very clear that we don't want to develop another treatment that only, like Dr. Joe mentioned, only 1% can afford it, right? We want a treatment that's really part of the moonshot. That's one of the big goals of this program, to make sure that the treatment is affordable, it's accessible. And so with the smart radiotherapy biomaterials, we don't expect you to do something that's going to be costly. So that's going to be a down select. Like if you cannot do that, you're out. Like we are going to be very, very strict about that. Okay. And when we say smart radiotherapy biomaterials, I actually want to mention that, yes, you can use fiduciaries, you have to be creative. One of the areas you can just use nanoparticles. One of the Nobel Prize that was won was around click chemistry, which makes it possible for us to actually really target nanoparticles to go to particular areas that you want. And so that's something that we expect that for that to work across multiple cancers, you want to come up with a technology that can access multiple cancers. And we already know some of you have superpowers in even getting these nanoparticles across the blood-brain barrier. So if you have a brain cancer, you can also cross that. But with a payload, obviously that's something that you have to make sure that you take into account. And then technical area 2 is really you have to build this model. We require that you have to show that at least 3 cancers. So you have to pick at least 3 cancers. Actually, one of them has to be pancreatic cancer out of those 3. Why are we starting with pancreatic cancer? Because it's one of the, as you know, the survival for pancreatic cancer is one of the lowest, right? 9, 10%, 5-year survival. And the environment itself is very immunosuppressive. So we believe that if you can succeed with pancreatic cancer, then it'll be easy to translate that to all the other cancers. That's what we believe. So we want to have pancreatic cancer as one of the cancers that you want to address. Okay, I already talked about the limitations of the current radiotherapy biomaterials, which are that they can provide CT imaging contrast, but they cannot enhance immunogenicity of the cancer or deliver immunoadjuvants. I've actually seen studies where people design these materials with polymers. These polymers are actually very effective in recruiting the immune system into the cancer. So they can be very useful. So you can change what we have today into ones that are really smart and can be able to make that tumor microenvironment more susceptible to get the abscopal effect. We want to make sure that it can be able to provide contrast, it can make the tumor more immunogenic, and can reliably boost the abscopal effect. And so the timeline for that, we are really very aggressive. Like I said, we launched this program last week, and then we're here on Proposals Day, fast 8 days. Again, thank you for participating in this short notice, but we're also going to be very fast about this. Even though we're putting this in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, I also know I've talked to some of you who would think we can be more aggressive, right? So this doesn't mean that if you come tomorrow and say, hey, you know what, I have something really cool, I can go into the clinical trial like now, that's really good, right? We want that because cancer patients don't have time to wait. But we're going to give ourselves some leeway and say for everybody, whatever you're developing. And so you're going to see that with this program, we're going to build teams. So some teams may be very fast, some may take time. I already talked to some of you, and I know where the technical area, your technology readiness level is. So some of you are going to be faster than other people, but that's okay. We want to have that as a contingency also. We want to make sure that not just one team is working on it, and if it fails, that's it. We want multiple teams working on the same problem. Your approach may be very different. It may take longer, but what we want to make sure is building that redundancy and make sure that, increase our chances for success. So key things in phase 1, essentially to make sure that, you can show that, your biomaterials can show imaging contrast. They can make the tumor more immunogenic. They can sustainably deliver an immunoadjuvant or any agent that you want that can boost the abscopal effect. And then we also want that, you should start talking to the FDA very early because we're developing something really new. And we have to make sure that we have a pathway to translating this to the clinic, to patients. So, we want actually for you to do like a Q submission, engage the FDA very early to make sure that what you're developing can be translated. And then phase 2 is really now saying, well, you demonstrate this in animal studies and you start manufacturing this GMP in a way that you can be able to translate that to clinical trials to patients. So that's going to be very important. Develop these pharma-grade smart biomaterials that, and you can see there, we put the cost there. So your cost cannot just be arbitrarily high. And then obviously we want to end up in the clinic. Again, I know people who are really close who can probably tell you they're very close to starting this, but we're giving this timeline just to make sure that you hit all those points, you can show all those metrics, and then we expect that you can start a clinical trial. Obviously, ARPA-H really wants to de-risk things. They don't want to necessarily fund large-scale clinical trials. So we're only going to end at phase 1, 2, right? So hopefully, if you do that, then you can essentially, if you're successful at that point, then I think going for a phase 3 clinical trial, you get all the investment in the world, right? So so that's really the aspirational timeline. But I can tell you that again, we're going to be very aggressive. If we're going to start, literally, if you can start this, if you come and say, you are ready to go at this particular stage, here's where you are. That's going to be music to our ears, right? That's what we want to do. And then I'll just talk a little bit about the abscopal, the last technical area here, the abscopal treatment planning system. So right now we do have treatment planning systems in radiotherapy, like but we don't have one that really integrates these biological models into that. And so we want you to get all that data and integrate that into a treatment planning system with AI can help definitely to continuously learn and improve that model. And so in phase 1 of this, we wanted to be able to establish this prototype system. You could even use synthetic data. Just assume that you can take all the literature that's been published around small animal studies on the abscopal effect, use that data to kind of generate a biological model there. And then obviously we want you to have a friendly user interface, something that people can easily use. And again, we require that you have a FDA Q submission. So start talking to the FDA very early because the treatment planning system itself may require that. And then in phase 2 of that, you demonstrate that, in animal studies, really show that, okay, if I had some animals with pancreatic cancer and I'm going to treat them, I can plan a treatment such that it can cause the regression for the primary cancer that I treat and also the cancer that's in other parts of the body of the animal. So you really want to show that that model works, and then get everything ready to submit, all the documents for regulatory approval to the FDA. And then obviously phase 3 will synergize with also phase 3 of TA1, where you are using that treatment planning system to plan that clinical trial that you're going to do. So again, this is just really giving us a lot of buffer. Like the ARPA-H director always says, ARPA-H wants to act like a time machine. So if we can really accelerate this as much as possible, compress that, which I think we can, so we want to do that. Okay, so in terms of your team, so again, your team, we expect that there will be one lead principal investigator. Obviously, you can have other team members. And then we expect that each team must also have a project manager who coordinates the efforts, because we expect that you're going to have a team. You're going to be working potentially not only in one institution, maybe you, and that's okay if you have one institution, but coordinating all the efforts. And then you also want to have a product development lead, because one of the things that ARPA-H really distinguishes itself from is the idea that we don't want you to just publish papers and file patents and then you are done. And that can be really great, right? I mean, we need that. ARPA-H really thinks about the transition. Obviously the clinical trial, phase 1, phase 2 is a good way to show that it's working in patients. You have to do that. But even more importantly, we want to have partners in industry who can also commercialize what you develop, right? Because that becomes sustainable into society. So obviously, that's one of the key things that we need a product development lead who is going to be managing and thinking about the commercialization of this if you're successful. And then because we're also building, kind of a new approach that can treat more different cancers, we also want to start training the next generation. So we're actually giving you a budget to include a one cure fellow, like include somebody in your group who is going to be learning about what you are doing. Somebody who is 10 years from their PhD or MD degree, who will be the next future doctor or medical physicist or engineer. You want to have that person in your team. So definitely include that as part of your budget. And then we also expect them to participate, like in all the things that you do, including participate. You have to give them a salary. So you have to budget that as part of your budget, and also give them travel expenses to come to conferences and present. One thing that we actually really like these One Cure fellows to also do is to do implementation research. Why do I say that? You may remember like COVID-19, when you generate treatments, if you don't really talk to the people who are going to use that treatment, it takes a long time to adopt that treatment. So we want you to be talking to people like, Miss Pat, talking to, Dr. Joseph, Dr. Joe, and making sure that, you are he said they are going to be part, but we also want you to be able to engage these people and say, tell them each step of the way, what's happening. And actually, that, from the COVID-19 experience, people like faith-based leaders had more power in terms of whether people adopt what was developed or not. Because if the people trust, those faith-based leaders or even community leaders, whoever they trust, if they say take this treatment, they're going to take it. But we do want to learn from them. We want to hear from them. What is your hesitation? What are some things that you are not comfortable with, so that we can address those things as we develop, so that we don't end up with a product that cannot be adopted, or that there's misperceptions in the American public about that. And so the One Cure fellows, that may be one thing that they can do for you. They can carry out this implementation research. You can talk to people and also in the process learn. There are going to be a number of meetings. So we have called the meetings of the minds. So basically it means that twice a year, we want the teams to talk to each other. So there are going to be multiple teams. We don't want everybody to work in isolation. We actually want you to meet once in a while and share knowledge and talk about where you are with the work. And so all the members of the performer teams will be able to have a chance, to talk to each other. And then we also will have principal investigator meetings, which means that we meet very regularly to see how the progress of the work is going. The good thing about ARPA-H also is that if you need more money, if you're progressing well, you need more money, you can ask for more money, right? But if you're not, we also want to know if you are not being successful. Literally, part of my job will be to really shut down any work that's not moving forward. Like, that's really important. That's one of the flexible funding opportunity with ARPA-H really mechanism allows you to do that, right? You reward the person who is really doing really well, but if you're not doing well, we want to know that. Obviously, we're not going to do that in a cruel way. Obviously, we want to do that in a way we'll give you some buffer, but at the same time, we're not just going to give you, a blank check to just do work that's going to last years with no outcomes, right? So it means that we are going to be having regular meetings to kind of see how the progress is going. But then once a year, we're going to have an annual meeting. Maybe it's at Astro, APM, pick a conference of your choice. We're going to pick one of those conferences where we have like a PI meeting where everybody comes together, including engaging people like, Mrs. Pat and Dr. Joe. They'll also be there engaging the community to come and hear and learn about the progress that's being made. So that's going to be really important. All right, so what's the timeline here? Coming to an end here. So looking at, so today is Proposals Day, so it's in March 24th. The next timeline that you see there is the solution summary. So that's April 15. That's not far away. So the solution summary, Carl is going to talk a little bit about, how things work, but the solution summary is just short, 6-page proposal, up to 6 pages. So just the concept that you think you want to do. You don't have to provide too many details, but what you want to do is really communicate the fact that, you have the capability to do this work. That's all you really need to do. And then once you do that, rapid turnaround. We're going to be very fast in saying yes, encourage, discourage, right? So we like what you propose, so move forward, and then you can spend more time now to develop. Obviously, May 22nd also is not a long time. So it means that even when you are developing your solution summary for 6 pages, you should really be thinking about the large one, right? You're thinking about that. The large one allows you now to have the fuller proposal, allows you now to be more detailed. Carl is going to talk about some of the review criteria, what's being considered. But then we are also going to be very aggressive in selecting the final teams. So full proposals are due in May. By June this year, we are going to be able to know which one of your superpowers you're going to bring to make this happen, right, as part of the teams. So there are going to be multiple teams. Obviously, we are aiming for multiple teams, but all working towards the same goal. Your approach may be different, but we are all aiming to the same goal. Some people may be very fast, right? So some people may take longer. As long as you're making progress, that's what we want. And so, literally, we are looking for a kickoff this summer, later on this summer. That's very aggressive. But that's also what's cool about ARPA-H, right? We can be very aggressive like that in terms of the funding. So we hope that during that, I know this was a really fast event where we kind of put this together. You guys had to really rush to be here, including those who are online who may have wanted to be here, but are not here. But we promise you that the day that the team is fully selected and you get your funding, it's going to be a big kickoff, right? So we're going to create a day that that the world will actually, really celebrate and give you all the support that's needed to really become the Avengers against cancer, right? So I will stop there. And before we get to questions, there's going to be time for questions. I also want to welcome one of Dr. Anush Kapadia, who is actually from Oak Ridge National Lab. And the national labs are obviously part of the US government. And so one of the good things that even though ARPA-H has a unique model, we do talk to all the other, ARPA-H talks to all the other government agencies. And so, Dr. Anush is going to tell you about some of the things that they have at Oak Ridge. That may be resources for you, right? We're actually going to we want to work with them. We have an agreement where you could do things like independent verification and validation of your results. So it means that some things like the treatment planning system, if you develop that and you just want an independent validation, maybe that could be a resource that we can leverage, right? So Without much ado, I welcome my friend, Dr. Anuj. Let's give him a hand, please.
Greetings. My name is Anuj Kapadia, and I'm here to tell you how Oak Ridge National Lab can support the One Cure program. ORNL is a federally funded national lab. I'm not sure what's happening with the formatting up top, but I'll just read the titles. Oak Ridge National Lab is a federally funded national lab. It's a national resource through the Department of Energy. It's one of 17 different national labs in the United States. For those of you who don't know, we are located in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It's only about 20 minutes from the Smoky Mountains, 3 hours north of Atlanta, 3 hours east of Nashville. It is a beautiful place. I personally love it there. Oak Ridge has driven major science and technology initiatives in a variety of fields. We have directorates which focus on neutron sciences, a directorate on computing, materials and chemical processes for energy. We have fusion and fission, high energy physics, biological and environmental systems, isotope productions and R&D, energy systems, and then national security interests. So as you can see, it is a wide variety of research that goes on at ORNL. Part of this is the Oak Ridge Leadership Computing Facility. For almost 3 decades now, ORNL has had the distinction of providing the world with some of its fastest computing systems, right from Jaguar, which was in 2009, then Titan Summit, and our current flagship system, Frontier. Each time we launched a system, there was about an order of magnitude improvement in its capability. At the time that they were launched, each of these systems was the best in the world. And then, of course, someone else launches another one, and that becomes the best, and then it goes on. Now, it's not just a race about who can launch the biggest and baddest computer out there. It is more about what can you enable with it? What kind of scientific discovery? What kind of capabilities and technologies that would not otherwise be possible? What can you do with this? In the world that's closest to us, biology, biomedical science, I give you an example in simulation and modeling. Each time there has been a release of a new machine, each time that scale at which we can do computing has gone up, it has led to more detailed simulations. Initially, all we could do was maybe some viruses, maybe even before that, some ion channels. And then you go a step up. With Summit, you could do ribosomes, and then you go up to 10 to the 8th atoms, and then COVID-19, 10 to the 9th atoms, and so it goes on. Currently, we are at Frontier, so we're right about that stage you see on the screen over there. But that's not the end. Our next systems are already in the works. They're already in the pipeline. And of course, we all await with bated breath to see what quantum will actually enable and do for us. So there is a strong pipeline in place already, and we will all get there. Our current system, our current flagship system is called Frontier. It has roughly 10,000 nodes or 10,000 CPUs and almost 40,000 total GPUs. This is one machine. It can be used as one machine. It can be partitioned. It can be used in many different ways. The good thing is all of this is a user facility. It means it isn't reserved for us, for DOE or our federal collaborators. It is open to everyone. It's open to each of you who's on this call. All you need to do is apply for it. It is a competitive resource, which means you need to log onto that website or use that QR code, put in a proposal, and your proposal gets reviewed by a resource utilization committee. And they will identify the most meritorious proposals that will then move forward. The good thing is if your proposal is selected, it is of no cost to you. You don't have to pay for compute access. You don't have to pay for staff time for researchers who at ORNL who will help you bring your codes onto Frontier or any of our flagship systems. It is all covered. That is why it's a user facility. For many years, for many decades, we have enabled biomedical science. We have worked on fast-tracking medical discovery through large-scale data analytics, using knowledge graphs to identify discoveries in massive data sets. We work with the VA, we work with NIH, with NCI, on data mining and identifying what's happening with cancer trends in the country. Modeling and simulation is a huge focus of what we do. Much of it is relevant to OneCure, and I'll talk more about it in a minute. Cancer detection is a major aspect. We have imaging research on pathology, on cancer detection, cancer progression, from the imaging standpoint, as well as the biomolecular standpoint. And then cancer surveillance, looking at how is cancer evolving? What are the different types of cancers that are appearing in the country? Who's being affected? What are the current trends? How do we identify which trends are happening not only now, but which ones are upcoming? In the next few slides, I'll give you a slightly deeper dive into some of the research projects that we have already undertaken that are of relevance to the OneCure program. And these are some things that may be available to the performers as a resource. The first one is using AI for digital twins in health. The idea here is to build a digital twin that is specifically catered to radiotherapy and cancer applications. We work with a suite of digital twins. These are the XCAT phantoms that come out of Duke University. It is essentially an anatomical phantom, which contains physiological data as well as biological data it is not a generic human, it is specifically you. We can model a digital twin that looks and behaves exactly like any given human. You can take one of these digital twin templates. If you have a CT scan or something from which the individual human's organs can be segmented, you can then morph that digital twin to look exactly like the person that you're trying to model. We have taken that a step beyond, and we are starting to model the human's biology as well. Why is it that two people can get the exact same treatment, one would respond and one would not? There are factors in our genetic code. There are factors in our in our makeup that govern these aspects. And for the factors that we know, we have a way to encode them in these digital twins and then make them respond specifically to the way that the corresponding human would. Now, the twins can't act in isolation, so you need a simulation pipeline. And we have developed this multi-scale simulation pipeline specifically for radiation effects. We could today start at the left end of this scale, have an XCAT phantom that looks like any one of us. We can put in some tumors. We can treat that patient, that digital patient, using some sort of treatment. It can be chemotherapy, it can be radiation therapy, it can be a combination of the two. The simulation pipeline will assess what's happening at the multicellular level. So how does your injected molecule, your radiopharmaceutical treatment, or your chemotherapy diffuse in the body? How does it spread to different parts of the body? How much is going to tumor? How much is going to other healthy organs? What's happening in there? What is happening at the atomic and even DNA level? How many single and double strand breaks do you see? As a result of that, what's happening to individual cells in a tissue? Are we creating more cell death in healthy tissue or in tumor tissue? And it propagates that way until you get an outcome for the actual patient. This whole thing is one seamless simulation tool. So it takes the burden away from a user having to translate between these different scales, and the simulation tool will do it for you. We have adapted this for molecular interactions, using it for smart cancer therapy. Essentially, if you have a new material, a new chemotherapeutic molecule, or a new nanoparticle that does something that wasn't known before, we now have a way to model its effects in the human body. We are doing this right now for new RPTs, radiopharmaceutical treatments, using actinium and several others. We have worked on synthetic data generation. What I'm showing you on the screen is results from a study where we generated 10,000 synthetic CT scans. So these are 10,000 full stack CT scans of virtual patients with fully known ground truth. This was done in the context of an imaging study along with Duke University. And what it demonstrates is that we have the ability to supplement any existing clinical data with synthetic data where you know exactly what was modeled in the patient. So think of how this can impact your ability to train an AI algorithm or test performer solutions on in any aspect in your treatment planning system or in the context of new biomaterials. We have several projects in drug discovery. In fact, through the course of COVID, we established what was a national virtual biomedical lab. It is essentially a computational drug discovery pipeline. I say drug discovery because that was its purpose, to find new drugs that could mitigate effects from COVID. However, it can be applied to any material. The idea is you use a computational platform to identify what properties you want your material to fulfill, and then you let a computer program identify which candidates are the best for that type of material. And that can often help you narrow your search space down from 10 or 20,000 different molecules to potentially 5. All of that can be done in an in silico environment. And what you see over there, video working. Video isn't working, unfortunately. What you see over there is the yellow molecule. It can be anything. It makes its way through this lipid cell wall. And you can see all of these different interactions taking place, and that yellow molecule is bouncing its way through a complex structure of other objects in the body, of other structures in the body. That sort of capability is possible today using simulations. Additionally, Oak Ridge also has a strong and rich history in isotope production. We have a medical isotope program. It's a combination of computationally driven as well as real physical approaches to developing isotopes, which are used in a variety of applications, including medicine. We have directorates, divisions that work on isotope production and chemistry. Also looking at advanced molecular constructs, essentially what kind of chelators would you use to bind with those isotopes for developing more effective forms of radiopharmaceutical treatments. Here's a list of radioisotopes that are currently produced at ORNL. 225 actinium, we have barium, there's a whole variety. These isotopes are available to most of the community if anyone is interested. In fact, this is a program where Oak Ridge National Lab and the University of Tennessee have put in a $20 million investment to enhance the isotope production and utility, the isotope capabilities for, again, many different fields, including medicine. So that's an active area of focus that's going on today. Finally, Oak Ridge also has several cutting-edge user facilities. We have a spallation neutron source. We have a high-flux isotope reactor, which produces all kinds of different radiation. We have the Center for Nanophase Material Science, which has all kinds of microscopy systems. Any user can come in, bring their samples, and scan them in ways that might not be possible in other institutions, academic labs, or elsewhere. I've talked, of course, about the Oak Ridge Leadership Computing Facility. And we also have what's called MDF, the Manufacturing and Demonstration Facility. It is essentially a prototyping, in-house prototyping warehouse, if you will. If a user comes to us saying that we want a material that can do so and so, the MDF is able to create that material for them. They have all kinds of advanced 3D printers and material creation technologies. I walked into MDF one day and there was a car sitting in the lobby. And it turned out they had 3D printed that car. And they put in an engine and someone drove it around. They got a professional race car driver to drive it around and demonstrate the integrity of that 3D printed material. There was a speed limitation, of course, but everything worked and that car is still there on display. It did not fall apart. So these are some of the resources that could be available to ARPA-H performers, to the federal agency itself. To summarize, Oak Ridge I think of it as a holistic, a combined infrastructure, a combined resource. We have, of course, federally secured classified computing environments with high assurance systems. So if any performer wants to bring in clinical data, PHI data included, we have systems, we have enclaves that are authorized to operate at moderate sensitivity, the kind that you need for PHI data. We have, of course, high-performance computing for large-scale simulations and AI ML workloads that we envision for OneCure for your treatment planning systems. We have proven leadership in multi-scale digital twins, synthetic data generation, and radiological and isotope-based applications, all of which apply over here. We have deep expertise in model evaluation, secure data engineering, and consensus model design. It may be that you have multiple performer solutions, and the real answer is a combination of them. And we can help, of course, with creating that consolidated model, the integration. And finally, Oak Ridge does an extensive amount of work in end-to-end software development. Like Will was saying, the goal isn't to invent something, write a paper, file a patent, and be done. The story really not ends, but your end goal is when you can take that tool and you can translate it into a clinic or into the field or into something that has a meaningful impact on the end users. We have experience with that, including incorporating the regulatory aspect, talking to FDA or in this case FDA, but really any regulatory agency that's going to govern the work. I'll leave you with my last slide of ORNL's envisioned role in the OneCure program. There are many resources available. These are some ways in which we can assist the program, assist the performers. An AI test bed, which is it's a sandbox where the performers can bring their data, performers can bring their tools and test in a way that comparisons will actually be apples to apples or oranges to oranges. IV&V, we'll talk about that briefly, independent verification and validation of performer solutions. The whole digital twin and synthetic data generation capability, I wouldn't underplay it. The ability to supplement clinical data using synthetic data is in my opinion, a tremendous opportunity, and we should all be exploring that just as a field, as a medical field. Cross-performer integration, interoperability testing, secure data compute environments, data harmonization, and interoperability. I don't know how many performers you envision having, Will, but the number of performers that you have, I would multiply the number of data formats and data structures by about 7. So there will be a need for data engineering and data harmonization so that all of the data that come into this program can be used for each of the different tools. And for that, Oak Ridge can play the role of a trusted partner. We have actually done things like that with NIH and with the VA, NCI, many other federal agencies. And of course, other things like model stress testing, automated cohort generation, evaluating your clinical workflows in the context of a simulation in a secure environment. And then for ARPA-H, providing high-level overall analytics, providing overall insights into what's working, what's not working, how do we make the process more efficient. I will stop there. Thank you very much. If you need to reach out to me, my email address is on the screen.
Thank you so much, Anush. Anush will be around, so we'll go for the Q&A. If you have questions to talk to, you can ask him. But then he'll also be around during lunch and during the networking, so great opportunities to interact. All right, so I'm going to introduce my Carl Schmo, who is really going to be a key person for you in terms of contracting, and he's going to talk to you about the ISO. So let's welcome Carl.
All right, how y'all doing? Thanks for having me. My name is Carl Schmer, and I'm with ARPA-H, BID specifically, Business Innovation Division. So I'll be dealing with all the contracting. And you'll see us throw a couple different words regarding that. We'll have other transactions. We use contracting kind of as a general term. And then, of course, there's like cooperative agreements, grants. For OneCure, we'll be focusing on other transactions. So just for the basics, we had our ISO, which is the Innovative Solutions opening, which is what is out now on sam.gov. And you can also find links to that through the ARPA-H website under programs for OneCure. It'll have the SAM posting link to that as well. So yeah, the ISO just basically allows us to put in general what we're looking for out there without being too prescriptive. To allow y'all to come up with your innovative solutions that then we can review and try to fund. So yeah, again, all these will be other transactions. I don't know if you've worked with other transactions. They're pretty similar to all the other, financial assistance vehicles like cooperative agreements or grants, but other transactions let us negotiate much more fluidly in a more commercial way. So we're not constrained by all the regulations of like federal acquisition regulation, which is going to dictate cooperative agreements and FAR procurements. So yeah, again, big part is solution summary. You can have multiple solution summaries, and then once that solution summary, if it's selected, then you would make like one proposal for that solution summary. If you have multiple different ideas, you can actually propose those even if you're one institution. Just have each proposal under different PIs. So if you have one PI that is just has this great idea in one lane, another in a different one, that they don't really merge too much, that's okay. You can present both of those ideas with the different PIs. And if we like both of those solution summaries, it's possible that then you'd have, your two proposals, one for each of your PIs going in their own swim lanes, and potentially both of those could still be funded. Even though it would, the award would go to just one institution, or the institution's name would be on both awards, but having the different PIs is fine. So, okay, yeah, just for OTs, the main thing of other transactions is that we have maximum flexibility for contracting. For government contracting, it is the most flexible. And that's because we really have very few regulations that bind us in another transaction world. So that kind of allows us flexibility. Like I said, most importantly is like IP. A lot of intellectual property for the FAR, or even for like grants and cooperative agreements. There's still a lot of limitations on how the intellectual property is handled. So with OTs, we're actually able to be very open with that and to negotiate those terms. Of course, generally, government always likes to come in with a government purpose right. For intellectual property, that's generally what we like. However, because we're not constrained by the regulations, we're able to specify those intellectual property rights for each potential patent or idea. So OTs just really help us with that. Again, we have sample OTs that you should be able to find on the website. But if you have any issues with that, you can just reach out to me, and I can pass on some sample other transaction language. It's not probably doesn't deviate too much from what you've seen before, so it shouldn't scare you or anything. But just so you'll be able to see the type of language we'd be using. Again, the OT templates is on the ARPA website, and then also I can pass those. Yeah, for eligibility, basically anyone is able to propose. So whether it's an educational institution, or if you're a for-profit company, nonprofit company, we're allowed to award to any of those. So I would say probably you at least want somebody with SAM. Somebody has to have a SAM number, whoever's actually getting the award. So I believe even if the awardee is not from the United States, even as long as the institution is able to register in sam.gov and is able to get their SAM identification, then there should be no problems. So you shouldn't have to have like a U.S. institution lead, as long as they're able to get registered in SAM. Let's see. So FFRDCs cannot pose. So you can normally still, if you want to include them on your team, just let us know. A lot of times we're able to do agreements from government to government, so that we just make sure the funding, some lanes aren't getting mixed up and all that. So it is possible to work with FFRDCs, but just let us know in advance, so that we can see if we're able to set up those agreements in between ARPA-H and whoever the FFRDC would be. Again, yeah, SAM registration, super important. So just make sure that whoever is going to be signing the dotted line is in SAM. Pretty sure, yeah. Yeah, so anybody who is going to have a PI in the team is going to need to be in SAM. However, if you have like a subcontractor who is not providing a PI, but is kind of just more providing like a service, like CRO type level, they wouldn't have to be in SAM. So just mostly your front-facing organizations are going to need that. Again, we do give priority to entities conducting work in the United States, but again, once you get into the realm that we're in, there's such specialized knowledge that we don't want to limit ourselves by saying we'll only accept U.S. companies or institutions. So don't let that, I would say, don't let that dictate. If you have a non-U.S. entity that's kind of forward-facing on this, that's all right. Just because everything that's being done here is so specialized and important. Oh yeah, and for a number of awards, sometimes we get people who for grants and cooperative agreements, there's specifically language saying a lot of times that those organizations can't get more or have more than 3 active awards with ARPA. However, that doesn't apply to other transactions. So that's another great reason to use other transaction vehicles, is that we're not limited in how many awards we can give out. In solution summaries, I think it might have been said 6 earlier, but it's 4, or at least for now, we have 4 pages, which of course excludes the cover page and all that kind of stuff. So 4 pages of significance. And again, we have our solution portal, link is up there. And then you'll submit the solution summary. We'll review that. If everything looks good, then generally what we'll do is we'll send a selection letter. And we might say, oh, it's a partial select. We like these ideas, focus on those. This idea, maybe drop off. And that's where we really start getting into the negotiations of the work to be performed. And again, we have solution summary examples, and we have full proposal examples on the ARPA site. If you have any issue finding them on ARPA site, then just reach out to me and I can get you samples. So again, both go through reviews. The review level is going to be different. So for solution summary, normally only focus on like criteria 1. Whereas full proposal review, we're going to be looking at everything from costs, how much does this benefit ARPA-H, and all that. These are the evaluation criteria for full proposal. Again, basically for solution summary, I'm pretty sure that only one, I'm pretty sure it's only one, so criterion 1, but I'll double check on that. But yeah, for the full proposal, we'd be using all of it to include costs. So it is not anticipated for solution summaries that you're providing Excel spreadsheets of cost. It's okay to not have that level for a solution summary, but when it goes to proposal level, that's when we do have that. And you should be able to see from the OT examples, it'll show kind of what level of granularity that we get to for costs and pricing. Yeah, final guidelines, basically SAM.gov is everything. So any updates are going to be posted to SAM. They will be posted on our website too, but SAM is the official place that to hold the solution summary proposal information. So just make sure you're monitoring that. See, if you're not in SAM, definitely get registered as soon as possible. If you're not in it, start the process now if you can, and just let us know, when you propose your solution summary, hey, we're not in SAM. but we're working through it, and provide as any information you can on just showing that you're going through that process. Normally, the SAM process is relatively quick. However, we are moving very fast for this project as well, our program. So it would definitely behoove you to get that SAM registration started as early as possible. That's basically it. We have solution summaries again on the 15th. So remember taxes and remember to do your solution summary. We have, full proposals are for the 22nd of May. Let's see. Yeah, again, we have the specific one cure at ARPA-H.gov website. So any question you have with one cure, reach out to that mailbox, because even if it's more on the contract side, that'll still get passed to me, and then I'll still be able to answer that. So you'll see the FAQ as it's being updated will generally have a mix of technical and contracting questions. Yeah, and the last part I would say is also important. If you do see any contradictions between answers on a FAQ and the ISO, please let us know. The ISO always takes precedence. So no matter what is said here, or no matter what is said on a FAQ, if it's not on the ISO listing on sam.gov, then it doesn't exist. So just to make sure that any information you hear from us is reflected on that website, which we do a good job at making sure that they stay together. So there shouldn't be any discrepancies with that. All right. And then, yeah, that's the break. So again, my name is Carl Schmer. It's just carl.schmer at arpa-h.gov for my website. I reach out if you have any questions. And yeah, definitely appreciate y'all being here and look forward to seeing the solution summaries and proposals and getting y'all funded to do your amazing work. So thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Carl. So Carl will also be around after the break in case you have questions for him. But at this point, we will take a little break, and then when we come back, we also have we'll have an FAQ, so frequently asked questions. But before that, we're actually going to have a presentation from the Division for International Affairs for those who are joining internationally and I'm wondering, how can we be part of this? So, but for now, let's take a short break. Thank you so much. All right, welcome back from the break. So we're going to start now with hearing from the ARPA-H Division for International Affairs. So we're going to have Caitlin, who is going to join us online. It's going to be a remote presentation. Caitlin, are you there? Over to you.
All right, I'm going to start talking unless anyone comes in and says that they can't hear me. So thank you everyone for joining us today at the One Cure Proposers Day. At ARPA-H, we take on the most challenging health problems, as I'm sure you can see by the high bar that the One Cure team has set. And to tackle these types of problems, we need the best and the brightest research teams. As Will said at the top of today, you all have your own unique superpowers, and we're excited to see the ideas that you bring to the table. All right, so at ARPA-H, we often get 3 questions around international engagement, which you can see here on the slide. So can we fund R&D activities outside of the US? Can we directly fund a foreign entity? And how do we handle IP? So I'm going to take each one of these individually, starting with, can we fund R&D activities outside the United States? The answer is yes, we can. Although we do prioritize funding activities inside the United States, our programs are directed at problems faced by American communities, but we recognize that these problems are often shared outside of the U.S. as well. And therefore, the expertise and the specializations that are needed to address these challenges probably also lay beyond the borders of the United States. So the answer to this question is yes, we can, but the end goal is to meet the needs that we are seeing here in the United States. And therefore, we ask that the solutions that you submit should be tailored to American demographics and circumstances. To the next question, can we directly fund a foreign entity? Yes, we can, and we have. We welcome ideas from different groups and are looking for the best ideas and capabilities brought together. And as was noted by the bid portion that you just heard about, anyone who wants to apply has to register through sam.gov. And this includes foreign entities who are eligible to obtain a unique entity identifier, which is required for submission. There are, however, a few countries that we are not able to fund, which you can see on the screen. And so teams from those countries who submit proposals would not be eligible. How are IP rights determined? So this is determined just as if it would be for a domestic entity, which is on a case-by-case basis. So during the negotiation phase, that's where these discussions take place around IP, and that's where these terms will be determined. So regardless of whether you are based domestically or internationally, we take a very tailored approach to negotiating IP. Because we know that we are asking for very unique solutions and that those might come with unique circumstances, and we want to meet those circumstances appropriately. So I'm sure that the team will reiterate this throughout the day. But of course, if you have questions about the program, you should definitely go through the OneCure team. However, if you have any questions specific to international, such as how to work with different partners from different countries, we are also a resource, and we can be contacted at international@arpa-h.gov, which you can also see through our QR code on the screen. So I'm going to be quick and wrap it up here, but we're excited to see what partnerships come from OneCure, and excited to see the solutions that you guys propose, and happy to answer any questions, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. That was wonderful. Please stay, don't go away. We're going to have a chance now for you to ask questions. I want to welcome Carl. Maybe come and join me. If you have any questions you can ask, we'll try to answer the ones that we can answer. If there are any questions that need more time, we'll collect those questions, and then we will address them and send you the answers. And like Carl mentioned, we're going to populate those questions online in the frequently asked questions so that everybody can benefit from your questions. Is that correct, Carl? Okay, fantastic. So yeah, we are open for questions.
Thank you. Question for Carl. Salary caps mentioned in the ISO. NIH salary caps, and I'm wondering if the federal requirement, is that just DHS funding, or is it any federal contract that you're getting salary from is included, builds up to the cap?
Yes, any salary
from federal funding. So even if it's DoD funding and not DHS funding. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a question related to Wilfred. Specifically, it's clear what is the mission of this program. Now there needs to be a balance with respect to what is novel in terms of, for example, immunotherapeutic molecule that you may want to use, and what is actually feasible, translatable from a regulatory standpoint within the time frame. So where is, from the programmatic standpoint, what is the priority given to knowing that, again, there are hurdles that needs to be overcome in the regulatory aspects?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. One of the unique things that we want to do with this program essentially is we want to, we don't want to be restrictive. We just want to open the door for you to be creative and find out the ways that, as long as you come up with an approach that you can make this happen, right? It could be, whatever agent that you think you can use, as long as you can achieve the goals of this program. Now, it doesn't mean that if they are really, that's why we actually really suggest that you engage the FDA, very early, like in the first phase, even as you progress, make that Q submission. That's actually the recommendation that we got from the FDA. We talked to them, and basically they said the best thing to do is very early on. If you have something that you think may require the regulatory approval, engage with them. Then they can provide that guidance. But obviously, if it becomes something that we need more time, we can talk about that. That's part of the flexibility that the ARPA model allows you.
It's working, sorry. So since I have the microphone, I think I just want to clarify, the emphasis is on flash RT because of, the strong rationale, of course, but does it mean that every team will only investigate flash RT, or you are open to other more traditional radiation treatments?
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. That's a really good question. We've actually had a question submitted around that. Some people have talked about spatially fractionated radiotherapy. Can they use that? Um, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I think one of the key things would be, and that's a really good question because that means many people are thinking about the same thing that you're asking. So what we want to really do is we are not going to limit what kind of radiotherapy that you use in particular. So, but we still want flash as a component of that. So we're going to be very ambitious. We're going to aim and think, okay, well, flash may be the up and coming approach 5-10 years from now. So we want to make sure that we accommodate for that. We don't want to do something that then flash comes and it becomes obsolete in some way, right? So that's why we're aiming big. But actually, if you can show, obviously, if you can try another approach that's very successful, wow. Well, we want to think about the patient, right? We're not thinking about just some arbitrary science. So we want to aim for some science, which, we want to make sure that it's focused on benefiting the patients. So yeah, I mean, I would encourage even looking at other approaches besides flash, but, definitely include flash, capabilities, which will be good to kind of have that in mind as we think about the future and the advantages that it offers. Yeah.
So in the spectrum of discoveries from very basic to translational to IND, filing to clinical, is there a preference for where the sweet spot is for this OneQ program in terms of where the OneQ would like the applicants to be at?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't really get everything.
So just thinking there's a lot of activities that would go on from basic discovery, IND enabling studies, filing the IND to clinical trials.
Yeah.
From a OneQ program, is there a preference for where you would like the applicants to be at?
Oh, yeah, the program actually, the ISO has a lot, like tables that are there kind of talk about when you should start considering IND filing. So I think that's a good guidance for where you should be thinking about that. But actually in phase 1, we really want to encourage, like I was answering, before, like try to engage with the FDA very early and talk about the platform or the technology that you're bringing. And then they can give you some guidance. We talk to them basically, to ask, what's the best way to approach this? And they say just do a Q submission, right? Let's have a discussion. We can tell you, and we can bring the right office because within the FDA, there are many offices, right? Could be the device, could be the software, they can bring the right people from the FDA to work with you so they can be more successful and not delay, the translation. Right? I mean, it's wonderful if everything is clear to you, that means we did a good job. Oh, there's another question over there. If there are questions online, please submit them. I think, are we monitoring the questions online? Yeah, okay.
So I just wanted to clarify that in one hand, you want to be cheaper.
Yeah.
And there are many technologies which will be cheaper. On the other hand, the more higher we go, it becomes expensive. So whether it's flash proton or flash photon or flash carbon, I mean, all of those are within the realm.
Mm-hmm.
So same applies to nanoparticles, same applies to immunotherapy. A patient who gets immune checkpoint, which is approved, is about 150 to 200,000 a year. A patient who goes to one of our so-called immune adjuvant, and we have a trial with patient data, at the most, we have to just pay for the few fractions of radiation and the 5 doses of the drug. So financial toxicity comes into play.
Yeah.
And your high ambitions come into play. How do you want to ask, or what is your advice for that?
I mean, that's a really important question, I would say, because as you read, one curative one comprehensive universal radiotherapy for everyone. To make that for everyone means that affordability has to be really central to it. But I also get it that, some of the things maybe that could work may be very expensive. And so how do you, consolidate, what do you do there? So one of the things that, we really want to do, we really want to aim really high and challenge everybody to look for a solution that's not expensive. We cannot accept the status quo this time. Like ARPA-H really doesn't want any, like we're really going to aim really high and challenge your innovation, your creativity, come up with a solution. And we also think that by using the smart biomaterials, hopefully that can reduce cost, right? If you can really target, something, maybe you don't need the same volume of that drug that you need to be able to target that. And so hopefully that can also help reduce the cost. Well, the nanotechnology, the smart biomaterial itself is a cost. So you have to think about how to, bring those two together. But yeah, we really want to aim big. Obviously, as we go along, if we see that this is we can make accommodations, but that's the goal. We really want to make sure that we have that hard stop. We don't want to come up with a solution that's just going to be another solution. All right, questions online? Yeah.
I will.
Yes.
Here's a question online from Charles Lamoli. The question is the program specifically emphasizing single-dose flash radiotherapy, i.e. non-hypofractionation? And if so, what are the perceived max single-dose limits?
Yeah. Again, that's our ambition. We want to have, a single decisive treatment. In terms of the dose, I think that, there's some mixed evidence out there already. Some people say you need 20 gray or more for a particular cancer. I know work by Sandra, for example, at Cornell, they've done a lot of work thinking about dosing and other groups. Some other people say, well, you just need a small amount of dose. So I think that the science is going to drive this, what dose it would be. It may end up being that you don't need, 30 gray. Maybe you need 10 or you need less than that. So we're not going to put a limit on terms of the dose. But yeah, we really want to aim. The main thing about the flash, again, I just want to make sure that that's the ambition. If this is an emerging approach that may be here, we want to make sure that we are accommodating for that so that whatever is developed here doesn't become obsolete. That's number one. But number two, the fact that, there's some science that shows that this actually minimizes the damage to the immune system, right? So there are many studies like that, right? So that will be very helpful, especially if we want to empower your immune system here. So that's why we're aiming that big. But obviously, if you have, approaches in between that can help, we are not going to reject that.
Thank you. And here's another follow-up questions. The question is, what are the specific limitations on the exact nature of the nanoparticle biopolymer for TA1?
Yeah, that's another great question. Again, that's the one where we also are going to leave that to your creativity, so we are not going to put any limits there. The only key things to mention for TA1 is that, this smart biomaterial should be able to provide contrast. That's number one. So it can guide the treatment. Number two, it should be able to deliver some payload, some agent that can boost the immune effect. And then number three, yes, if it makes the tumor microenvironment more immunogenic, that's good. But those are the two key ones. Contrast, be able to deliver this immunoadjuvant or agent, whatever that agent is, to boost the abscopal effect. Those are the critical things. The size may come into play where you're thinking, is my technology going to be applicable to different cancers, right? So it may be if you're using a seed, it may work for prostate cancer, it may work for breast cancer, maybe it works for liver cancer. But can you also target that to the brain, right? Maybe you need a nanoparticle formulation in that case. So that will be left to you to decide what you want to use there. So we're not going to put any limit in terms of that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have a question for Will and a question for Carl. So for Will, so on the affordability issue, I know you said come up with ideas, the less affordable way of developing the idea. But then when we want to actually move this from idea to implementing it, should we think about who we want to partner with or companies that we want to work with? Because once we develop it, let's say if we work with a company, we may lose control of the pricing, and then it's still maybe an expensive treatment, as we heard from the patient advocate, and their situation. So does ARPA-H consider that also of how you're going to implement it? And then I'll say my question for Carl after that.
Yeah, I mean, the ARPA-H is really cool because we want to disrupt things, right? So we want to be very disruptive, but we also value, the fact that, having businesses. For the sustainability piece, we want to have a business that can be sustainable, that can make some profit, can sustain this, right? So, so we think that small businesses are more nimble in some ways. So I think we want to have companies that can meet those metrics that we've set there, right? So that's the that's the hard stuff, right? So you're going to find, we believe that, with your creativity, you can find the right, company that you can partner with that can move towards meeting those goals. That's the challenge, right? Because if it was easy, we would do it. But ARPA-H comes at it is really hard, want to solve these hard problems. And I'm sure that, if we challenge people like you and companies, they're going to come up with creative ideas that can come up with lower cost technology. That's the goal here.
And for Carl, I was wondering if you can give us a little idea of how the negotiation phase works. Because I know you said, it happens, but what happens and what does that mean exactly?
A lot of times it's like pretty informal, really. For the OT template, you'll be able to look at that and see the different sections for IP and whatnot. And then we basically have conversations. We have meetings and go over what kind of rights the government would like, or what kind of rights the company needs to maintain. And then we just have discussions, really. So a lot of the negotiation is just back and forth meetings between ARPA and the companies to decide or figure out what IP rights are going to be manageable and best for the situation long term. So we don't have specific hard limit on we must have this amount. We are really flexible on that. It's kind of, as Will was saying, ultimately we want it to be win-win. The hope is that we can find affordable solution that people can pay for, but that companies involved with it can still, benefit from it financially. So yeah, I would say we're pretty open on what we will accept. And all of that is just done through negotiations. Like if you believe that this needs to have, limited rights, then it's just a conversation on explaining why you believe it needs, limited rights, what potential pitfalls you see if, the government was given more rights, etc. And then just based on those conversations, we'll negotiate to a IP agreement that works for all of us.
Yes, thank you. So it's just a follow up on that, Carl. So have you had a situation where a company goes through they've gone through the solution summary, they have a good proposal, and then it comes to negotiations and you were not able to approve them, probably based on their financial standing or some other structure of the company that will stop you from funding the company, even if the project is sound and
Yeah, I mean, that will happen. Normally not so the negotiations I was just speaking about is more so with IP and negotiating the exact terms and all that. When it comes to the actual finance portion, that discussion is more so going to be on the selection letter. So you might come in and say, oh, we have this idea, we can do all these different things, it's 50 million. For that partial select letter, we might come back and say, hey, we like this idea, and we think it's, looking around more like 25 million, cutting it in half or something. And then you would have, then you would negotiate with Will and everyone else on why it needs to be this price, what, so that negotiation is different than the one I just mentioned, but yeah, it definitely happens where, people will come in with an idea and it might be priced way too high for us. So then we negotiate price and go back and forth on developing a new, like not to exceed amount for the contract. But we don't have numbers in mind beforehand or anything. So it's, so yeah, that negotiation really just is on how much evidence really, or how well you can persuade us that this can't happen without this amount of money, or that if we drop 10 mil, this is what's going to happen in the downstream, and being able to provide us with that information, and then we're able to negotiate based on that.
The other part of your question, which was about the financial stability or standing, you need in your proposal, if you get invited, you need to describe what your capabilities are or your team's capabilities. So if you have a brand new startup and you have no facilities, it's going to be hard to do work. But if you have a partner that may have those facilities, that's part of that teaming effort. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And Michael, may you talk about the regulatory thing you just whispered? Can you just communicate that about the regulatory thing you just talked to me about?
So one of the other things that I've learned, I've been in the ARPA world, mainly on the DoD side, but one of the things that an ARPA does is they get the technology excuse off the table. Understanding there's lots of regulatory stuff or policy, whether you're dealing with the FDA or you're dealing with DoD, whoever you're dealing with, there's a lot of that. But the point of ARPA and what Will's trying to get to is think about the innovation. Think about what technology you have that is truly going to revolutionize this program that can get you to that next level. Understanding, yes, you got to deal with the FDA, but put that in the back of your mind. Focus on the tech.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, questions?
We have some questions online. I'm going to start off with this one. Can you please address the part in the RFA that recommends commercial organizations propose as the prime on team? What would you recommend to academic labs pertaining to this?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Can you please address the part in the RFA that recommends commercial organizations propose as the prime on a team? And what would you recommend to academic labs pertaining to this?
I mean, I can mention, or maybe Carl, if you have something to add. I think we don't really have any preference whether it's a commercial entity that's the prime or it's an academic institution. So anyone can be the prime. You have to decide as you build your performer team, who is going to be the prime. And like Michael just said, you may think about, if I have some capability, maybe as a commercial entity, I don't have the labs. Maybe you want to partner with an academic institution that has the labs, but it's really up to you how you design that. Does that sound sense? Next.
Here's another technical questions from Andrew Wen. For nanoparticle, do you have to be multifunctional and fancy? We have a nanoparticle in phase 1 with preliminary data showing excellent safety and therapeutic, quote, abscopal signal, but it's not multifunctional, no imaging functionality.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. We have the metrics and the in the ISO. We really have to follow them, which means that if you have your nanoparticle that lacks the other capabilities, you have to team up with people who can help, bring that capability. Maybe you need contrast, then you can talk to somebody who can add some molecule to it that can provide a contrast. But yeah, we're not gonna bend around those metrics that are there. It has to have those multifunctional capability.
Yeah. So I want to ask a question about the program execution side. So once the program is awarded, will you follow the program progress and based on milestones and then renegotiate the funding? Because science is science, and it's hard to predict what's going on.
Yeah.
And a follow-up question is, if multiple teams progress, but not as they expected, but each achieve a certain aspect, will you suggest to reorganize among different teams?
The first answer is yes. In the first question you asked, I think, was about milestones. That's yes. The second part, I'll let Michael answer.
So two parts on the milestones too. ARPA-H takes a very active active management. So you're meeting, your progress is tracked on a monthly basis. You're meeting with them every month on a regular timeline. So we understand science is science. The second part is that we don't direct who you partner with, how you partner. If a team is failing, we may cut the entire team, but it's up to you to adjust internally. The prime's job is to make sure that the team is performing what they promised.
We won't really step into like create teams either. So if a group comes with some good ideas and a different group has some ideas, and it's not really our role or responsibility to match make. So I would say if there are certain TA that you feel strong about but feel weaker on another, then now would be a good time to figure out who is good on the TA that you're not, and figure out how y'all can partner together. And then just for that previous question too about the commercial versus an academic lab, I wouldn't have any concerns about that. Like in no way will you coming as, University of Texas Medical Lab that's not going to hurt you versus, Bob's science company or whatever. So we don't really care if it's commercial versus like an educational institution as the prime. We've had great experiences with both, whether we deal with academic institutions all day. So yeah, so I would say don't let that limit your how you go about things. And then for milestones is absolutely going to be the way. The milestones is everything. So the award will one of the biggest parts of it is going to be the task description document or research description document, which is going to say, all right, here's how we're going to tackle the things in the TA. And then beside that document will be the milestone payment schedule. And that's going to lay out, payment generally. We do it in a monthly cadence. But if, you want to come quarterly or whatever, then sure. But generally we maintain monthly just so that, you're getting an output of money every month. And we're able to have monthly updates on seeing what's, how things are progressing. And then of course, if, like you said, the science is showing, that the landscape is changing or that things need to be shifted, then yeah, we have conversations with that to get that done. And that's why the monthly meetings are so important and the milestone are so important, so that we can get on those things early if there are any issues and readjust. I mean, sometimes it says minor, as we said this milestone is going to be done in month 3, but it has to be month 5 due to X, Y, and Z, and as long as that's not a big deal, then we just go and make the modification real quick to the contract, just switch, that milestone from month 3 to month 5, and we keep it moving. So generally we're pretty flexible in being able to modify or amend the contract to more align with what the science and reality is actually showing.
Okay, over here. So I guess my question is a bit of a follow-up to what was just discussed about subs and potential partner in a team, a sub award, I guess, if that's the best word. So for instance, like we're developing nanoparticle-based immune therapies, and if the sub themselves are really performing, checking all the boxes as far as the SRBs go, multifunctional GMP production, everything is ready, but the overall project and the team may not have performed or hit the milestones. Is there opportunity for the subs to reach out to Will or and say, okay, is there something else we can do to keep advancing this? Or is this really sort of a top down where the prime kind of really dictates a lot of the performance of the team?
Yeah, that prime sub relationship is going to be key. Generally, we just deal with the prime, and then the prime can deal with their subcontractors however they would like to. So in a situation like that, I would say, it's subcontractor could reach out, just to see like what potentials there are. But yeah, I would say generally everything is with the prime relationship. So,
Sorry, I just wanted to kind of iterate what you just said was there is opportunity, there is a path where in a situation where the subcontractor, a particular subcontractor
I would say like I would say my answer would probably be no. I would say let's stick with no. And then if situationally, it turns out differently, that's great. But like we definitely wouldn't be canceling a contract and making the sub now the prime, or we wouldn't terminate the contract and try to find the sub a prime to better work with or nothing. Like that hypothetical situation sounds like a failure of the prime, which is, would be sad news for everybody. But yeah, we definitely, we won't really be taking good parts out and mixing them up or nothing like that. It really is the prime.
The whole program is all about dreams and passion, right? And yet the regulatory affairs from FDA is one step at a time. So we have flash RT, that's new. We have nanoparticles, that's new, etc. Is it possible to arrange the 5-year program in such a way that both the preclinical and the clinical can go side by side? For example, if you are ready to actually do a trial of radiation plus adjuvant X, which is not yet nano, but it's already showing activity, will you allow that? Because even for the nano has to be tried, let's say CTLA-4. CTLA-4 is right now systemic. Ideally, it should be compared with nano CTLA-4 versus systemic CTLA-4 to find out which works the best, right? So is it possible for you to continue both the clinic and the preclinical at the same time, parallelly, if you are ready to do so?
Yeah, so my answer to that will be that we really want to make sure that you're meeting those metrics. If you can meet them really fast, that's actually what my interest is, to really meet them very fast. And I think that I've actually engaged with a lot of you. So I know a lot of the performer community, and I know where the technology readiness level is in some ways. And so I think that maybe some of the challenges that you see may be solved through teaming. But I also really want to focus on making sure that you meet the metrics. If you're doing in parallel, that's something that, if you need a budget for that. So that really needs to be justified why that would inform the metric that you are doing. Obviously, if you do that and it's clear to me that that particular study that you are doing is going to help you maybe improve your model for the abscopal treatment planning system, there's some flexibility there. But I think that, we really want to focus on that milestone, metric by metric.
In the ISO, there's a statement that commercial companies that are not small businesses should offer cost share. And so I'm wondering if you can provide some examples of cost share, and maybe in particular, some that you think would be particularly helpful for this program.
Yeah, that one, I'll probably have to circle back with you on that, unless Michael, if you have any great knowledge of that. But
So to add to it a little bit, so depending on your team, there's varieties of cost shares that we've seen, to include in-kind contributions. If you're working with a company and there's venture money there, those are the kinds of things that you can propose. But it is a variety of things, both financial capability, whether it's, I'll say, negotiating the overhead costs, for example.
But just stay away from using federal stuff as your in-kind, because I've seen that where, people say, oh, we have this, machine, $100,000, it's in kind. who funded that machine? Oh, it's through a government contract. Well, we probably already have rights to it, because we built the,
Right.
so yeah, that just, if for cost sharing, just make sure, yeah, it's something that is funded by the company and not the government.
Is the cost share coming at the team level or at the individual sub, or let's say the commercial company is a sub? Does the commercial sub have to do the cost share, or can it be explained or provided at the level of the entire team, which might include nonprofits and universities and things like that?
Yeah, I would say at the team level.
Okay.
Yeah, or at least prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned that there might be the possibility that you would select a portion of a proposal to move forward. Does that happen after the full proposal stage or at the?
No, that would happen at it would happen at the solution summary, after the solution summary. Because so normally by the time but when you're doing full proposal, like that's going to be pretty much like what we're all looking for at that point. So to try to stay away from people having to like redo full proposals over. So yeah, generally a lot of the financial not to exceed limits are like established around that time.
We have some more online questions. The first one is from Nasser Darwish. The question is, can PAT tracers be utilized or only contrast agents for CT or MRI?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Can PAT tracers be utilized or only contrast agents for CT, MRI?
I mean, if you can, as long as you can get imaging contrast to show that, you're targeting, the technology to the cancer, that's fine. I mean, we're not going to limit what kind of imaging contrast that you use.
Thank you. And another technical question from online, from Dennis Zimmerman. The question is it a prerequisite to include FLASH, or is modern radioligand therapy combined with a cool ARPA-like approach a viable alternative, one that does not require FLASH RT?
Yeah, that sounds like a really frequently asked question. People have asked in different ways, whether are you going to use FLASH or not. We really want to aim for FLASH. Again, if you have other approaches that you can do as part of the process, that's fine. But we really want to make sure that it's part of the submission that you're making.
Okay, we have one that asks how the teaming will work, like academic to academic.
I just want to step back real quick. Just to clarify for the proposal aspect, when you do submit your full proposal, there's definitely a chance that that is going to be further negotiated. So I'm not saying that stops at that point. So just so you know, yeah, you may submit a full proposal. We still may come back and have to reconfigure that. It's not guaranteed or anything, but that does happen. Yeah. So just want to clarify on that.
Thank you. We have one. How will teaming work? Like academic and academic, or academic and company?
It's however your team looks like. If you don't have any commercial entities, then you would not be able to have a. So it's the teaming is based on the team, and the essentially the relationships that are established in the teaming is up to the team. Teaming kind of allows vendors to go kind of beyond the prime and sub relationship to let ARPA-H have more relation with the sub, and that it would be for a team member versus sub. So for some groups it benefits them to do it in that way, but the actual teaming agreement is not dictated by ARPA at all. That's purely the academic institutions or commercial entities that want to team up. They themselves get together and figure out whatever hierarchy they want to have, whatever rights, etc.
Thank you. I'm just trying to understand a little bit better the relationship between the TA1 and TA2. Each project has, or each team has to address both but the data used to build the model in TA2, is it pre-existing data, publicly available data, or it's can be just connected to the data emerging from the TA1 part of the work?
Yeah, that's a question that we actually thought about when we're developing that, Sandra. So I think what we want to do for phase one of the project, it doesn't have to be data directly that you generated by yourself. So you can use the goal, even like Anush was talking about with Oak Ridge, you can think about synthetic data, just develop a model that you say, assume that this was, for example, based on the scientific literature, maybe some animal studies, maybe from a clinical trial where you had combining radiation and immunotherapy, you kind of know some of the dosing versus response, relationships. So you can start with that kind of very preliminary model. And then we hope that by the time you get to phase two, you would have gotten some data from your animal studies in other TA where you're using the smart biomaterials. And then you can start integrating that into your model to improve that. And then we actually hope that, this can be a self-learning model. So when you get to a clinical trial, maybe you're going to get some signal, but, we hope that as you now continue to get human data, you're going to continue to improve that model and continue. So the short answer to your question is that phase one, we don't expect you to have had that data, from your research that's funded through this program already. You have to find either synthetic data, or you can find what's in the literature, or through your teams that you've made. So for example, I know you've done a lot of work around combining radiation and immunotherapy. Maybe some models can benefit from that. Maybe Anush can help with his digital twin. That's the kind of capability that he was offering earlier on.
Well, is there a limit on indirect cost? Any cap?
Not specifically.
Institution, as you know, if the institution charge different percentage
Yeah.
on indirect cost, so that's why I'm wondering.
No, we don't have like a hard cap. We see different indirect rates all over the place, and most of the times they are negotiated. We'll have Department of Health and Human Services. Normally we'll have negotiated rates with academic institutions. So in general, we abide by that. I would say, yeah, if you're an institution that already has your, negotiated rate agreement with the HHS or sometimes Navy or whoever it might be, we generally abide by that.
Yeah, related to that question, for industry, I know with SBIR, they charge profit. How is that treated with ARPA?
You can charge it. So you probably want to stay within the industry norms of profit for government contracting. And yeah, so yeah, you can propose profit. It's we're not against that per se, but that increases the cost, which is might make it less appealing. So when you're dealing with negotiations and stuff, it's just that's something you might want to monitor, is that profit rate and how much you actually need to stick by it or not. But yeah, you could definitely propose profit.
But notice the criteria in order 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So technical is number one. Focus on the technical.
Oh, yeah. Regarding the criteria of actual selection, yeah, it's criteria 1 and all the way down to 4 being price. So definitely let the science lead. But yeah, but you can definitely propose profit.
And here's a question online. Is radiation the only therapeutic model considered? We propose a treatment voids exposure to drugs and ionizing radiation.
Yeah, so like the acronym, one comprehensive universal radiotherapy for everyone, radiotherapy is going to be the primary focus of this program.
Are you able to share like the scale of the overall budget for the One Cure program? Like how big can we dream, right?
Yeah, we don't usually share that. I did see on Carl's slide, like even as Michael has said, really focus on the science. The technology should be your guiding principle. Don't worry about the budget at this point. So we usually don't answer the question, how much budget? But obviously, it's one of the evaluation criteria. I've seen people put $2 million per year in travel costs, for example. That's just ridiculous, right? I mean, so you have to justify every single cost, but we are not going to put a limit to that. The science should be the limit.
I guess maybe a follow-up question to that regarding, the budget as a selection criterion. I mean, if that seems out of scale with your expectations, is that, an automatic cut point, or is there a discussion about it?
Yeah, like Carl also mentioned, really, we can talk about discuss, right? You could say, well, this particular component, let's focus on this now. And the cool thing about ARPA-H also is that, you can always come back for more money if you're being successful. I can actually, we can ask for get some more money for you, but we can decide that, okay, if this budget is so excessive, let's focus on a particular component, demonstrate that if you're successful, and then we can think about, getting more money.
Look at it and say, oh, this dollar value, throw it out. Like we don't do that at all. So it's all depending on the science that you're laying out and the justifications that you're providing for that science. And then we'll come in and have negotiations on seeing because I mean, at the end of the day, if you need, 500 million and we don't have 500 million, we just don't have it. So at that point, we can't give that to you, but we can negotiate, and talk about what we do have, what we can cut out and all that. So, yeah, so I would say generally best foot forward, type with the science and everything. And then we'll discuss the money and try to, get that within, if it's already within budget, then great. But if it's not, then we have discussions to see what can be taken out while maintaining the integrity of the science and still achieving the end goal.
We have an online question. When will teaming profiles page be published with all of the submitted profiles? I knew this was going to be a big one. That's me. I will be doing this for the ones that I have, hopefully by Monday. So. And
then we'll really encourage, even during lunch, get together, meet people, introduce yourself, what you're doing. I think that's also the powerful thing about, having this in person. And if you're online, I think you guys can introduce yourselves online as well, even just your institution and what you are doing. That's really helpful because then that can enhance that kind of collaborations, right? Teaming.
And here's online questions. A pretty frequently asked one from Joshua Milligan. The question is a contrast via MRI CT a hard requirement, or would you favorably consider alternative approaches that provide guidance with a PET aspect, a radio tracer, if there's strong technical rationale in the proposal?
Yeah, I mean, the imaging contrasts are really guidelines. I think we're not going to, again, as long as you can show us that you can get image guided, you can guide your technology, the treatment, we'll be flexible around that. We're not going to be very hard on, it must be this particular metric on the imaging.
Can you describe the ideal profile of the project lead?
No, I mean, I think I'm not going to be prescriptive here, but I think that, I look at this room and I look at the people, I know the people who are online, I just know they're all smart people, right? I mean, I don't think that I'm actually the best person to advise you on who should be your team lead. Like the profile of the person definitely should be somebody, you want somebody who can lead teams, right? You want somebody who can work together. If you're having a consortium, we don't want somebody who cannot work across the team. And one thing that will actually encourage, I did mention that when I was sharing the slides, was we're going to have all the teams coming together once in a while, like twice a year, just to talk to each other. And part of the risk that we normally know when you do any cross-disciplinary research is that the language may be very different. What a physicist is talking about, the engineer and medical oncologists and immunologists, they may not be using the same language. So you do definitely want somebody who can communicate a little bit like a catalyst between all those worlds, right? But if not, we're actually going to be helping facilitate that kind of cross-talking to each other. It's one of the things that I'm actually really going to focus on, because that's a risk, literally, for a program to fail, is if you cannot work together. That's really important.
One question with regard to the percentage effort for the principal investigator.
Yeah.
Is there a minimum requirement there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, people kind of ballpark, I mean, again, we're not going to put a limit, but I think reviewers can say if you're putting something less than 20, 25%, it means you're not really going to have enough time dedicated to work across the teams. So, people usually say, and even from NIH experience, like, so if your effort is 5% and you are being the leader of a team, that's just not going to work. You need to get more time off to dedicate to the project. So, but we're not going to put that limit. I think, you again need to have enough time dedicated to the project if you think that's really valuable.
Here's an online question from Hailim Cho. Does ARPA-H anticipate that Flash RT clinical systems capable of treating pancreatic and other tumors to be sufficiently available within the program timeline to support phase 3 multi-center trials? Does ARPA-H have existing partnerships or resources to facilitate performer access to clinical Flash RT systems?
Yeah, we're not going to facilitate anything. I think as you build your team, think about that, right? And again, we're not really limiting. I know Proton Flash, people have done that clinically. There's still ways to go. It's an emerging technology. So, but, I think if you do animal studies, we're not even going to limit you only to protons. You can use photons. I know people who are developing Photon Flash or carbon flash, so, but we're going to leave that to the team to decide, what they want to do. And that should be factored into your calculations, where they can actually do a clinical trial, using that.
And here's another online question from Mansu, referring that Flash radiotherapy has no clinically validated treatment planning for deep-seated tumors and dosimetry, beam control, etc. I would jump to the end. The question is, what degree of planning maturity and demonstrated safety is warranted before severely detrimental normal tissue toxicity is realized?
Yeah, that's a great question. That if you look at the TA metrics, we actually have safety metrics there, milestones, like, CTA, like level 3. I mean, you're going to do some of that studies in your animals anyway, and even large animals. So we definitely don't want to do anything that's going to be, by the time you get to the clinic, that's not going to be safe. So if that happens, then you really have to go back and redesign. You have to do something different. Yeah, Billy.
Thanks. So regarding the clinical trial phase of the program, is the design of the clinical trial something that would be proposed at the beginning? Because it seems like it would have to be informed by a lot of the earlier phases.
Yeah,
exactly. So how would you describe, the clinical trial part of it as part of the proposal?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I actually think you're going to have to, that's going to be informed, like you said, by the earlier phases, but we still want you to engage with the FDA, start talking to them about, oh, here's my approach, what will happen if I get to this point when I'm going to a clinical trial. But yeah, that has to be driven by the science in the earlier phase. So for example, if this year you can do animal studies, what the dosing would be, what biomaterial to use and all of that stuff, then that should inform what you use in the clinical trial. But you can already start engaging with the FDA at that point. And for us, we're not really going to focus on that FDA. Like Micah was saying, it's really your job. We encourage that. You still have to tell us that, well, you're already talking to the FDA at this point. But short answer to your question, yes, it has to be informed by what you're doing earlier on.
So a lot of the OTs also are awarded with, we'll just have like restrictions for animal studies or human research. So yeah, don't worry if we need to get that in place, because that's really common for the OTs. I have restriction language saying, these hoops will be jumped through, and everything will be obtained before we start human trial or human testing or animals. So yeah, you don't have to have all that stuff together for the initial proposal. Just, yeah, if you have like IACUC protocols and stuff that we can start looking at, then we can, work with our people for ASR, HSR to get that restricted, but ready to be opened up as soon as we need it.
So we now have 3 minutes left. We're going to cut it off because we can keep asking questions all day. The final question and answer, if you look at the ISO, are due on April 8th. So if you have further questions, you can submit more questions and we will consolidate, answer, and post them online. That includes everyone in here, everyone online. So please submit your questions in writing. I'm not sure if it's to the mailbox but that's the best approach because we can keep asking questions here forever.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the questions. That was really nice. Thank you. So right now, before we go for lunch, we really want to, first of all, thank you again, all of you, for having, despite all the traffic challenges of getting here, that we could still get you guys to be here. And for those who are online, we know it takes a while to just block out your day to be part of this. But really, this proposal day was really, organized because of you, just so that we can get some clarity into what is expected of this program. And so, we really want to end by thanking not only you, but thanking the people who have been working behind the scene, mention the team, Michael, Kerry, team, all of you guys, and also even thanking the ARPA-H leadership, Tyler, some people who could not even be here today, just thanking them for making this possible. Renee, if you see Renee, definitely say hello, thank you to her. She's done a great job organizing this. As to the next steps, we're going to have, this is just the beginning of the process, right? So hope that after this, we're going to get lunch, 1 hour, and then we'll come back. And then we're going to get lightning talks. We have some people here who have some really great ideas they want to share. It's actually good for you to start seeing what is the capabilities that people have already here. And maybe after that lightning talk, you may be able to find somebody that you can actually team with if you want to. So that's going to be really powerful. And then in addition to that, following that, I'm here all day as well, plus the team. So we have if you didn't sign up, if you want to have like additional questions and just talk to me about your idea, you can, there will be a sidebar room that's behind this, just behind here. If you sign up there, and then we can have some time to talk some more, especially if you're not running to the airport. But if you're going to the airport, definitely we can understand that. And we wish you safe travels. And thank you again for joining this important event. Thank you.